Saudi Arabia launching new airstrikes in Yemen. This as the country's Houthi rebels, backed by Iran, say they have now agreed to a 5-day humanitarian ceasefire, which is expected to begin on Tuesday. The U.S.-backed agreement is set to go into effect next week, bringing a temporary stop to a Saudi-led air campaign that has now killed more than 1,400 people. Joining me now is former Democratic Senator George Mitchell of Maine. He is a former Senate Majority Leader and former chairman of the Mitchell Commission. He also served as the U.S. Special Envoy for Middle East peace from January 2009 to May 2011. He is the author of a new book, The Negotiator, Reflections on an American Life. Senator, it's great to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me here.
Congratulations on the book. First, let's talk about Yemen. We were expecting a ceasefire today, and obviously that didn't happen. The fighting continued, and now they're putting it in place on Tuesday. Your observations of what's going on there?
Well, Yemen is a microcosm of the region. Deep tribal ties, not the sense of nationhood that we come to expect and take for granted in our country, a country that has been divided in the past between North and South Yemen, in which conflict has gone on for many, many decades. And it is an illustration of the complexity, the conflicting, overlapping, sometimes contradictory conflicts in those countries. Very difficult to resolve, plagued by poor governance, epidemic poverty, not an easy solution. I think that our support for the Saudis is the right position, opposing Iran's support for the Houthi rebels, who are Shia, and the dominant government before the previous government wasn't dominant, was Sunni-backed. But in Iraq, in Syria, some extent in Pakistan, in Bahrain, and now in Yemen, you see the Sunni-Shia conflict exploding in a devastating way.
Can we walk that balance of supporting the Saudis on one side who are against the Iranians while we talk with the Iranians about this nuclear agreement?
Oh, yes, of course. The fact is that what we're doing in trying to reach an agreement to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon will benefit the Saudis and the Israelis and all of the countries in the region who are part of the Arab coalitions that oppose Persian attempts to dominate the region.
We just heard from John McCain, who basically made the point that we need to see regular checkups in terms of what their progress is on their uranium enrichment. That doesn't look like the Iranians want to agree with that. And we don't want to be lifting the sanctions right away until we have a real deal, and the Iranians want those sanctions lifted as soon as the ink is dry, or even earlier than that. Yeah. Your observations on what Senator McCain just said?
Well, Senator McCain's a good friend, and I respect him, but I disagree with him on this issue. First is, the critics of the president and the Congress were harshly critical of the interim agreement. They said that Iran would not keep its commitments, but the International Atomic Energy Agency has verified that Iran has kept all of the agreements in the interim agreement. Now, the president of Iran and the supreme leader have said that Iran doesn't want nuclear weapons, but their words are contradicted by the actions of their government. And so an agreement based on trust is out of the question. The question is, will it have sufficient verification procedures to guarantee that Iran does what it commits to do in the agreement, and if not, the sanctions will snap back into place? That's the key.
And also critical, as the point that you've made on this program before, it's not just about America. These are 5 other superpowers that need to agree to this.
There are 5 countries beside the United States on our side of the table: China, Russia, Britain, France, and Germany. They are joining in the sanctions, which is why the sanctions are effective. Unilateral sanctions will not be as effective anywhere near as universal sanctions. The president's critics in the Congress say, let's up the sanctions, walk away, and Iran will come crawling back. That won't happen because the other countries won't continue in the sanctions. It's a fantasy to think that we can unilaterally raise the sanctions and somehow maintain their effectiveness. So the alternative to what the president is doing would leave this country facing 2 choices: a nuclear-armed Iran or a war to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran. And it's best to try to do it through negotiation if it can be adequately verified.
The president is meeting with the leaders of the Gulf states this upcoming week at Camp David. What do you want to hear from this meeting in terms of these leaders from the Gulf states in the Middle East working with the president, whether it be in Yemen or whether it be on these Iran negotiations?
Well, first, let's be clear. Every foreign leader with whom I met would like an American foreign policy that supports his country. We have to make our decisions based on our interests, just as they make their decisions based on their interests. So that's the first point. And every time a foreign leader criticizes the United States, they know there's a political echo chamber here, that the opposition says, well, look, see, this guy's not supporting our country, so the president must be weak. That happens whichever side is in power. So let's concentrate on what is the American national interest. We want peace, stability in the region. We're committed to Israel's security, but we have to recognize the limits of our ability, particularly through military means, to solve conflicts that have been going on for hundreds, in some cases thousands of years.
Having said that, has our leadership been weak?
I don't think so. No. The president ran for office saying he would end 2 wars. Let me just close with one statistic, Maria. There are 1.5 billion Muslims in the world now, 1 out of 5. In 2060, there'll be 3.5 billion, 1 out of 3. Those who advocate the use of American military force to resolve internal conflicts in the Muslim world are going to have a field day over the next 30 or 40 years, because they're going through a very difficult, turbulent period of upheaval and consolidation, and we can't bomb our way to success in the Middle East.
All right, Senator, good to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.